So, in this video, I hope to lay out a timeline of the events that actually happened on this entire Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni saga, because I think a lot of it has been misconstrued, and that is mostly due to the falsehoods that were in the New York Times article, and also the things that Blake Lively's attorneys have put into the lawsuit. They have purposely tried to mix up events, expand upon things that were not there, and just outright lie. There's no other better way to say it. It is just very duplicitous. And I believe it's on purpose in order to confuse the public, in order to spin some type of PR narrative to make Blake Lively look like she has claims that she really doesn't. So if you know anybody, or maybe yourself, who's having a hard time grasping exactly what happened, the timeline that it happened, the sequence, the rebuttals, and all of that, this video should help you understand it a little bit better. Okay, guys, so I've been working on this, and I am also working on a visual layout of this entire thing. So that will be coming soon. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to post it. I just started a locals. I haven't made it public yet, but I think I'm going to start migrating things over there, like documents that I have, or maybe special live streams, things like that, to kind of build more of a community of people who are interested in this case and want to see justice in it, because there is a lot to unpack. And yeah, it can be overwhelming to try to figure it out. So I'm going to start with this, and hopefully it makes sense. All right, so as of March 26, 2025, this complex saga spanning pre production in early 2023 and filming across 2023 and 2024 and legal battles in late 2024 has left many seeking clarity. Our goal is to consolidate Lively's claims as detailed in her December 20th, 2024 California Civil Rights Department complaint and December 31st, 2024 federal lawsuit, with Baldoni's counterarguments supported by text, video footage, and cast statements. Drawing from prior analysis of specific events, like Lively's trailer intrusion allegations and then Baldoni's rebuttals, this video synthesizes these into a single chronological narrative. Will demonstrate how Lively's accusations have been challenged by evidence and countering narratives from outlets like the New York Times to offer a factual resource for fans, legal observers, and the public. So, we're going to first begin with the production timeline, which sets the stage for understanding these events. So, this is now going to be a broad timeline overview. The production of It Ends With Us unfolded across two distinct phases, disrupted by the 2023 writer strike, providing a critical temporal structure for evaluating Lively's claims. Phase one, that's phase one of filming, began in early May of 2023, when principal photography commenced, and it concluded on June 14th, 2023, when Lively halted participation due to the strike, totaling approximately 16 filming days for her involvement. So this was a very short window that this movie was filmed, phase one and phase two. But in phase one, she was only filming for 16 days. All right. I want to make that clear, because I think a lot of people think it was a longer time that all of this was happening. No, 16 days. Okay. Essentially 2 weeks. 2 weeks. The strike initiated in June and resolved on November 9th, 2023, imposed a 5-month hiatus, delaying completion. Phase two resumed in January of 2024 and concluded in February of 2024, fulfilling contractual obligations to finalize the film. According to Lively's CRD complaint and federal lawsuit, all alleged harassment incidents, ranging from inappropriate comments to physical intrusions, were confined to those 16 days in phase one. with no reported issues during phase two, despite her continued collaboration with Baldoni on intimate scenes. This confinement to a narrow window, followed by months of uneventful filming, challenges the notion of a persistent pattern of misconduct, suggesting instead a situational escalation tied to a specific conflict. This leads us to examine the initial relationship between Lively and Baldoni, where earlier interactions might reveal whether such behavior was plausible before the alleged onset. So, just to explain that a little bit more. So, in those essentially 2 weeks, 16 days, in phase one, that is where all of her complaints come from. She is saying that within that time frame, that all of this harassment and making her uncomfortable, all of these things took place. Phase two, when they came back in January, when they filmed from January to February, essentially a month, there were no complaints. She said everything was fine. So when you think of all of this, all of these allegations she's making, it's only phase one. Okay. So the initial relationship between Lively and Baldoni. Prior to May 16th, 2023, during the pre production phase in early 2023, Lively and Baldoni maintained a demonstrably positive and collaborative relationship. And I would even say friendship, evidenced by multiple documented interactions. From January to mid May, Lively publicly praised Baldoni's directorial professionalism and leadership in statements and interviews, reflecting a level of trust and admiration. She extended personal invitations for him to come to visit her home, where he even interacted with her children. And she initiated private meetings, some occurring while she breastfed, as confirmed by text messages she sent to arrange these encounters. These interactions spanned several months without any recorded complaints or indications of discomfort from Lively, despite the close proximity and frequency of contact. This extended period of amicability stands in stark contrast to her later portrayal of Baldoni as a predatory figure in her legal filings, where she alleges behaviors such as uninvited trailer entries and sexual remarks. The absence of any prior incidents during the pre-filming phase raises a critical question. If Baldoni's conduct was inherently inappropriate, why did no issues surface during these months of intense collaboration? This lack of foreshadowing suggests her allegations may have been a reactive construct rather than a reflection of a long-standing behavior, bringing us to a key event that shifted their dynamic. So before we get into the key event, just understand. So there were months of this pre-production phase where they had a friendship, they were talking and texting and collaborative and just, what you would expect as the two stars in the film and also him being the director and producer. And things were so great that she publicly praised him. She praised his professionalism. She thought he was great. She had no complaints about him at all during this time. And she trusted him to the point where she would invite him to her home with her children. And even, like I said, invite her while she's there breastfeeding. Like all of these interactions were happening and there were no problems at all while they were in privacy. But we are led to believe that while filming and he's been recorded and they're on set and other people are all around, suddenly he just turns into this predator. He didn't do it in privacy for months and months and months when she was praising him. I thought he was great. But then suddenly in those 2 weeks, she retroactively is claiming that all of this harassment took place and some of it in front of other people. Okay, so I just want people to understand that because that just hasn't been clear, right? So The May 16th, 2023 turning point. On May 16th, 2023, a pivotal meeting in Lively's trailer marked a significant rupture in their relationship, initiating the sequence of events that fueled her harassment claims. Baldoni confronted Lively about her self selected wardrobe choices, which had drawn criticism from fans and Sony Pictures for deviating from Colleen Hoover's book character, Lily Bloom, and inflating costs by hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they had costumes chosen for Blake, but she didn't want to use those. They had a wardrobe department, they had a designer that designed the outfit, the look, so that it matched the character in the book. Right. And so then when people started to see the what she was wearing, when photos were leaking from the set, well, there was backlash online from people who were fans of the book, who knew what Lily Bloom was supposed to look like. And Blake Lively famously likes to style herself. And I think by all accounts, especially if you look at her in It Ends With Us, she looks a hot mess. Like there's no other way to put it. Her hair is a mess. The makeup's not great. The wardrobe is atrocious, like absolutely atrocious. And it makes no sense. But she is the person that wanted to take over that. And she felt as though she had to have agency on it. But again, when fans start to see it, they already were not keen on Blake. They did not like Blake as a casting choice because she was just too old. She didn't really fit the character in look, in age, in demeanor. She just was not people's first choice for this role. So then you imagine then they're very excited about this movie. They're just, hoping that it turns out great. And then when the pictures leak, they are just outraged because it's a disaster. If you've seen them, it's a complete disaster. All right. So, and then that's the other thing. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think she blew up the budget to $600,000. And this was a $25 million budget movie. That is absurd. And a lot of it, she claimed, was borrowed or was her own clothes. So what's not making sense is if most of it was borrowed or her own clothes, where did all this money go? Like, who was it given to? So when she borrowed these clothes, did she pay herself for having her own wardrobe in it? Did she pay her friends? She said she wore things from Ryan. She wore things from Gigi Hadid. She wore things from Taylor Swift. Were they paid for those borrowed clothes? Did she retain or did she like charge for those clothes and then she retained the money? This is when you're going to have to peel back and look into the books. Okay. So Justin, we're now getting back to Justin, does an intervention in her trailer. He has to come to her and talk to her about what she's wearing and the blowback that she's getting, not just from fans, but from Sony itself. This intervention aimed to reassert his directorial authority following an earlier incident in April of 2023 where Lively threatened to leverage her dragons, a term encompassing Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift, an influential legal counsel, to rewrite the film's key meet cute rooftop scene against Baldoni's vision. All right, so understand, prior to this thing with her clothing, the issue with her clothing, in April, because she wanted to write the rooftop scene and he didn't seem enthusiastic about it, that's when that meeting took place, when he was at her apartment and then Taylor Swift comes in and he feels intimidated, he feels ambushed because, she's basically trying to force her rewrite. But then we find out later that it was on the red carpet. She admitted that Ryan Reynolds wrote that. So she's trying to force that into him accepting it. And he doesn't want to, or he's apprehensive, I would say. So then Taylor Swift comes in and says, oh, it's so great, her scene, blah, 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 blah. And then he leaves there feeling just really weird about, just imagine, he feels bullied, he feels ganged up on. And then she sent him that message about the dragons. So this is the April of 2023 is when we see her trying to assert control. Okay. And then intimidating him with that text and saying that she's Khaleesi and referencing or inferring that her dragons are Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift. Okay. So that happens in April. Then this meeting about her wardrobe happens in May. All right. I just want to make that clear. So there's a lot of confusion, right? All right. So text messages reveal Baldoni's apprehension prior to the May 16th meeting as he requested prayers from producer Jamie Heath, that's also his business partner at Wayfair, indicating Lively's growing dominance had created a tense dynamic. Following this confrontation, Lively's initial harassment allegations emerged, beginning with a claim that Heath looked at her inappropriately that day, later expanding into broader accusations. She is literally saying that Jamie Heath looked at her in her eyes and looked at her, okay? And that is what she is claiming was some of the harassment that she experienced. It's essentially Emmett Tilling him. The black man looked at me because Jamie Heath is black. The black man looked at me. So the first person she accused in this case of harassment, of inappropriate behavior, is the black man, his partner, which is what happened with Emmett Till. The black man looked at me. That means that he sexualized me or he made me uncomfortable and he needs to be dealt with. That's important to remember. This shift, okay, so then she made the accusation and then she later on expands it into a broader accusation, far more than what she claimed at first. She then, this is one thing that she and her lawyers like to do, to say one thing and then they expand it, like just like make it like it was this horrible event, things that she was not even alleging at first. They keep adding to it to make it seem worse than what it was, and it was really nothing. Okay. And I believe that is all in part where they thought the public would, they can get the public on their side by seeing these things would leak, or people would look at the lawsuit and just say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And then she would win the PR war and hope to continue to crush Justin Baldoni. All right. This shift suggests her complaints were a reaction to Baldoni's resistance, not a culmination of prior misconduct, pointing us toward an underlying motive for her actions. Lively's alleged motive. Lively's harassment allegations appear strategically motivated by a desire to seize control of It Ends With Us, rather than reflecting a genuine victimhood, a conclusion supported by her actions predating and following the May 16th incident. In April of 2023, during pre-production, she threatened Baldoni with her dragons to alter the script, establishing an early intent to dominate creatively. She further assumed control over wardrobe, disregarding Baldoni's and the costume department's plans, and directed scenes on set as evidenced by video footage of her instructing Baldoni during the dance sequence. The May 16th clash, where Baldoni challenged her wardrobe overreach, coincided with the onset of her accusations, suggesting a calculated counterstrike. Her subsequent actions, continuing to film in phase 2 without issue and later securing the final edit of the film, reinforced this narrative. She achieved significant influence, aligning with her initial threats. This pattern of preemptive power moves, followed by allegations when resisted, frames her claims as a strategic tool to sideline Baldoni and reshape the production, not to address authentic grievances. This intent became even more evident with a key document she introduced later in the process. Okay? So you want to understand that. And if you look at the footage of that dance scene that leaked, that she didn't know Justin Baldoni had, and that would eventually come out, she is trying to direct him. She's trying to tell him where to move. She keeps talking. She's not comfortable with any type of silence. And Justin is comfortable with silence. That's what he wanted in that, like a quiet intimacy where you could look each other in the eye and share this moment. But I believe because of her relationship with Ryan and just her narcissism and their dynamic, she's very uncomfortable with intimacy. She's very awkward, and it's very hard for her to look at someone in the eye and just and feel that. Because to do that, you have to be a very honest and authentic person. And even with Justin Baldoni acting in those scenes, he is still who he is in his core. He can act in that way because he understands what that is. He can embody that role because that is something that he's an honest person. He can connect with people. But when you are not an honest person, you can't really look people in the eye, especially this close in an intimate, kind of sexual, soft scene. And this is why he kept wanting her to be quiet during it, but she kept wanting to talk over and over again. And she is the person that breaks character first during that scene. But she's claiming that he broke character and was trying to sexualize her in some way. When she talks about how, in that scene, how she says, her spray tan, is going to get all over him and I think smell bad. And he said, I think he responds, it smells good. Or it smells good. Something like that. He didn't say you smell good. It says it smells good. And she later tries to reframe that as though he was trying to sniff me and say, I smell good. When she is the person feeling insecure, she's constantly insecure about what she looks like, what she smells like, if something is sexy, all of these things that she does, right? And so to reassure her and to direct her, this is one of the things he does. Now, in that scene, she is claiming that he was, really, it was him that was out of character and he was trying to do all this stuff to her. It's like she doesn't understand that she's in a movie and she's an actress and they're supposed to be pretending. Okay. He's supposed to be the more aggressive one while they're acting. That is the role he's playing, to take dominance and be the man in the situation. And she's kind of like more coy and she doesn't know and all of that. That is part of the script. That is part of what it's supposed to be. And as the director, that's his prerogative to create that scene in that way, that intimacy. But she doesn't want it like that. She wants, if you notice, her and Ryan have a lot of these, what they call jokes back and forth. It is just straight out bullying, I would say, mostly coming from him towards her. There's never any softness or caring or anything nice said about each other online that you would expect from a normal husband and wife. It is a really weird, in my opinion, abusive relationship coming from both sides. But I do think Ryan Reynolds is the dominant in this relationship, and he's the one that pushes it on her. And you even see her very uncomfortable with silence. If you watch the promotion for It Ends With Us or any interview she does, she is constantly talking, like non-stop talking over the other cast, not letting other people say anything, expanding upon things that nobody cares about. And she goes on and on and on. She is uncomfortable in silence. She's uncomfortable in resting. And so when she's doing this scene, she's trying to push how she wants it to go because that's how she feels like intimacy is. She doesn't want to listen to the direction, but to even like, I would say is embarrassing. She's thinking that he's so into her, even though he's just acting and directing her. When they break, I think he tells her that there's something like either in her nose or her teeth. Like she's thinking, oh, he's really feeling me and all these other things. And he's like, okay, break. And then he ends up telling her that she has something. So she's thinking that she's like this is something special. No, no, honey. He's just doing what he's supposed to do. So that just, that claim is just absolutely ridiculous. She also talks about how he bit on her lip. We've seen the video later on where she was biting on his lip. So there's a lot of projection in her accusations. And she tries to retroactively fit conversations and things that happen even during when they were still friends and they would share things with each other. And she even said, you can trust me, to share your secrets, and I won't violate your trust, essentially. But then she goes on later to use those things that were not inappropriate. They were just talking and trying to build a rapport and develop how they were going to interact in the movie. She then went later on to retroactively fit those conversations and say that that is harassment. You can really see it in her complaint because it makes no sense. Like she tries to go back in time and revise and say what was normal interactions, she spins it into a tale of all of these bad things happen and this was what he did and all of that, and there's just no evidence of it. So let's continue. So we're going back to when production starts back up after the 16 days that they filmed previously. The strike is over. They're going back to work. Now, this is when she gives that 17-point provision or for her a demands for her to return to work. So in November of 2023, prior to phase two's resumption, Lively demanded that Baldoni and Wayfair Studios sign a document listing 17 conditions for her to return. And they were presented as necessary protections, but characterized as an extortionary ultimatum. Now, I just want to say this one thing. She was saying this was a thing that was supposed to create a safe work environment for everyone, but it's not, because everything that's in it addresses specifically her. Or there are things that were already safeguards in place on set. So, okay, yeah, we'll agree. This is already standard practice. This is what is already happening. And then there were other things that were added in that they're just like, they didn't have a problem with some of the things like to create this safe work environment. So they agreed to it. But the point you need to understand is that she was going to refuse to work anymore if they did not meet these demands, but not just refuse to work, holding over. This is when she comes back with all of these claims of like, she was uncomfortable and she's reported all these things multiple times. So far, the only thing, like during those 16 days, this is when she's alleged all this stuff happens. And there was dead silence. There was nothing going on during the strike. And then when she comes back randomly, she has all of these demands. And then she's saying that, I reported this and this happened. And maybe, they were things that were brought up before. But then even during this time, there was no really, she wasn't making any real claims. This was not an HR meeting. This had nothing to do with any of that. It's just in order to assert control over the film and Justin, based on she didn't like the wardrobe. She didn't like the resistance to her wanting to change the script. So now she needed leverage to hold over their head so that her demands can be met and that she can take over this film. And what am I going to do? Retroactively take any interaction and spin it into some type of form of harassment or making me feel uncomfortable. All right. So Baldoni, facing the potential collapse of the production and financial ruin, complied under duress, as evidenced by text messages expressing his fears of the refusals consequences. Guys, my lips are dry. I'm sorry while I'm reading this, and I keep trying to lick them, and you've probably seen it. But yeah, I just had to fix that up real quick. I'm sorry, my lips are so dry trying to read this. Oh, and I am okay. Let's continue. Eyeliner is falling down. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay. So he is now afraid that if he refuses this, that there's going to be consequences, financial ruin. The movie's going to be like completely collapsed. They've already filmed half of the film. Phase one has taken place, and now they would have to redo everything, and they did not have the budget for it. They were already over budget because of Blake and her wardrobe and all of that. And then eventually we see she caused delays where she said her kids were sick. But then now there's receipts that she was actually out at a Taylor Swift concert with her kids when she was supposed to be sick. Just delay after delay that she was causing in order to hurt the film and to run them over budget, to really put them under duress. Okay. All right. By the time of her December 20th, 2024 CRD complaint, the list had expanded to 30 no more provisions, incorporating dramatic and unverified claims such as Baldoni discussing his genitals or entering her trailer nude that were absent from the original 17-point thing he signed. So the 17 points in her complaint, right, that he signed, it expanded to 30 no more provisions. And then she added things in that he could not, Baldoni, that he could not discuss his genitals or enter her trailer nude. He never discussed his genitals and he never entered her trailer nude. But what her and her lawyers tried to do is in expanding this or adding things to it to make it seem like to the layperson to for PR that these are things that actually happened, but they didn't. And that's how duplicitous her lawyers are. I mean, they are just absolute snakes with how they tried to frame this because she has no case. She absolutely has no case. And so the only hope she has is to try to win the PR battle. And that's what they were thinking they were going to be able to do in conjunction with the New York Times, and that he would just slip away. I read an article that was about their marriage, how it's on the rocks, and there were inside sources, right? And it was three inside sources, and it was like Us Weekly or People, I think it was People magazine, where they were saying how, these three sources, they clearly on the inside of, on Blake and Ryan's team, PR or whoever. And these three sources were just like really trying to spin it so that you can have like, their poor kids and they're just really their emotional toll and make you feel sorry for them. Right. But one of the things that one of the sources said was that Blake and Ryan were not expecting Justin to fight back so hard. So while they're revealing all these things, I don't know if they let it slip. I don't know what. I don't know why they would include that in there, but they revealed that they were not expecting him to fight back so hard. So if you think they expand these points to 30 no mores and they add these things in, essentially lying, falsifying documents, making like there are falsified documents, there are falsified evidence in this in this complaint. Just so you know, they added these things in and they were not part of anything. They were not part of these 17-point provisions. She just wanted it in there again for PR points. So the no more phrasing implies these issues were ongoing and pervasive, yet phase two's smooth filming contradicts this, as do Baldoni's pre-existing compliance with many demands, like employing an intimacy coordinator from the start. Lively, with assistance from her legal team, and Reynolds appears to have retroactively embellished the document to bolster her victim narrative, transforming a leverage tactic into a broader accusation of misconduct. This escalation highlights her preference for coercive measures over legitimate reporting, a pattern we'll explore next. Lack of formal complaints. Despite alleging severe harassment ranging from uninvited, just move that real quick. Let me just start over. Despite alleging severe harassment ranging from uninvited trailer entries to sexually suggestive remarks, Lively never pursued formal HR complaints through Sony, Wayfarer Studios, or SAG-AFTRA, the actors' unions equipped with reporting tools like the Safe Place app. Yes, there is an app to report sexual harassment when you are on set. Instead, she relied on informal channels such as a May 26, 2023 phone call to Sony outlining 3 grievances, like Baldoni's sexy comment and the 17 provisions document, bypassing structured processes that would have triggered investigations. Sony confirms no HR complaints were filed against Baldoni, a statement corroborated by Baldoni and his crisis PR manager, Melissa Nathan. This omission is significant. Formal reporting would have subjected her claims to objective review, potentially exposing inconsistencies or lack of evidence. By opting for legal threats and leveraging Reynolds as her representative, her husband, so Ryan Reynolds was her representative, that she demanded that in that 17-point, these 17-point demands, and then later expanded to the 30 no more. She designated him most often as her representative to be on set. But he's trying to distance himself from this now. Okay. Lively maintained narrative control, avoiding accountability. This strategic avoidance raises questions about her subsequent actions, particularly her decision to resume filming with Baldoni. All right, so we're going to get in phase 2. But one thing I want to say about that 17 point thing, one of the in point 10 was that there could be no retaliation against her. And what was outlined as retaliation were ridiculous things. Sarcasm was not allowed on set, or that was she could deem that as retaliation. A change in mood, she could deem as retaliation. Change in attitude could be retaliation. Any like all of these things were. I mean, there was no definition. There were no definable points. It was whatever she felt was retaliation. She could label it as such, and then she was going to sue them. So that was the duress. Either you sign this or I'm going to sue you. I'm not going to continue to work on the film, and I'm going to sue you for sexual harassment. And if I feel like you retaliated against me in any way, essentially, she didn't want them to say no to her in any way, or make it even, she even got to the point where she could actually, in that document, she could control what people could say or not say, where who could look at the footage or not look at the footage, who could be there when a scene was filmed and not be there, who could control when the script was written, what was written in the script or the scene, or who controlled the scene. And it was her that had the final say. So she essentially became the boss on set. Okay, during phase 2, she became the boss. She had dominance over Justin Baldoni, which is what she wanted. And they felt as though they had to acquiesce to these things. Nothing was happening on set, but they were scared that if they did not comply, they will be embroiled into a huge lawsuit that she was going to say she was going to do if they didn't. And they also were afraid that they were going to lose the $25 million that was financed for this budget. I mean, for this movie, the budget for this movie, which was already gone over budget. So it was face bankruptcy and a lawsuit that will bankrupt you even more, and just ruin your name and ruin your company even more. Or you're going to do what I say. I control everything, and you're going to just like it and sit back and do it and take it. Those were their options. Okay. So in phase 2, from January to February of 2024, Lively returned to set, filming intimate scenes with Baldoni without documenting any further issues. The 17 provisions documented included a demand for a body double, which was provided, yet she declined its use, opting instead to perform kissing scenes with Baldoni herself. Paparazzi footage from this period captured her biting his lip during one take, suggesting ease rather than distress. And one thing I want to say here, guys, all of the harassment, okay, again, was in phase 1, is what she's saying. All of the sex and intimacy scenes were in phase 2. He was sexually harassing her in phase 1, where there was no intimacy. But in phase 2, when she controlled everything and there was intimacy, she says there were none. You got, because I think a lot of people think that she's saying that in her, like, because this is the way they tried to spin it in her lawsuit, that all of these sexual things, or a lot of things made her that uncomfortable, and the sexual harassment, a lot of it took place when it was these sexual scenes and the nudity and all of that. No. Because she later said phase 2 was perfectly fine. Nothing happened. But that was all the intimacy scenes were in phase 2. In phase 1, there were none. But she's saying there was sexual harassment and I was made to feel uncomfortable. So then she returns to set. She feels like she's harassed and she's uncomfortable. She demands a body double for intimacy scenes, but then doesn't use them. Doesn't use the body double. But yet she had all this severe harassment when there was no intimacy. So then she comes back, demands this body double for the intimacy scenes, but she's comfortable enough with her harasser to do them herself and forgoes that, just like she did with the intimacy coordinator. She did not want an intimacy court. She did not want to meet with the intimacy coordinator. Justin Baldoni had to meet with the intimacy coordinator in pre-production phase by himself, which he wrote very detailed notes. And then he had to go to Blake, to her apartment. She demanded that he come to her house, her home, and go over what the notes were from the intimacy coordinator in privacy, out of the earshot of anybody else, and out of the earshot out of the person that was supposed to be supervising these things. That was in pre-production. And then when it came back, she's requesting all of these, safeguards, but then she doesn't abide by them. Okay. Earlier on May 22nd, 2023, she texted Baldoni praise for his direction of the birthing scene, calling him terrific and expressing pride in their work. This willingness to engage in physically and professionally contradicts her legal portrayal of a hostile, harassing environment, as a genuine victim would not likely engage in such proximity or offer unsolicited compliments. Her actions continuing filming, foregoing protections, and maintaining a positive communication indicate the allegations were a fabricated tool for leverage, not a reflection of fear. This inconsistency became the foundation for her later legal filings and media efforts. So going back to the May 22nd, 2023, understand they delayed filming the intimacy scenes because she did not feel like her body was ready, because she had given birth and she wanted more time to get in shape. They were supposed to film it in phase 1, but to accommodate her feeling insecure about her body, they shifted it. They decided to shift it to phase 2 to give her enough time to get in shape. But they did film the birthing scene previously in the earlier timeline. And during that birthing scene, after that birthing scene, she texted him praising him of how great it was, how terrific, and expressing pride in their work. And then she's praising his direction, his professionalism. But this is all during the time she alleges she was harassed. And she even includes the birthing scene as part of that. Later on, retroactively, this is what she does. Okay. Guys, I'm telling you, she's nuts. The CRD complaint in the New York Times article. On December 20th, 2024, Lively filed her CRD complaint, securing an immediate right to sue letter to bypass a full investigation. Like she did by not doing HR complaints, she bypassed those and didn't, because she did not want an investigation. She forewent an HR complaint, and she, in her CRD, she went immediately to the right to sue because she did not want an investigation. Gee, I wonder why. So she does the right to sue letter to bypass a full investigation. So that right to sue letter she filed it on December 20th. She filed immediately for the right to sue, and she got that letter on December 20th. So the same day she filed it, she got that immediately. All right. And you could just you can just do these complaints online and upload your stuff. And then I don't even think it's looked at, or I don't know the process, but then like 15 minutes later, you can, or a very quick time, people were saying within less than an hour, you can get a right to sue letter. There doesn't even have to be merit in what you're saying or evidence or anything like that. You just make the claim and now you have a right to sue. No investigation, no formal process at all. So she get the right to sue to bypass investigation, and that followed by a New York Times article published within 24 hours. And in fact, the New York Times contacted Justin Baldoni on the 20th, the same day she filed this CRD and got the right to sue, contacted him at 9 p.m. on December 20th, right before Christmas, at 9 p.m. to see if he had any response to any of the accusations in the CRD and their article. They gave him till noon the next day. But then they didn't even wait till noon the next day. They published at 10 a.m. with a full edited video and claiming that they had combed through thousands of documents and text messages. They had done a full investigation. But now they're trying to get out of their lawsuit by saying, claiming that this was just fair reporting as journalists. This was an opinion, right? Because if there was opinion, it would get them in trouble, especially with what they did. And they actually claimed that this is what really happened. But we know from earlier days, the New York Times had been working with Blake Lively for months before she even filed this CRD complaint. But yet they're trying to get out of the lawsuit saying they just took everything from the CRD complaint. And that's what they put into their article. But that's not true, because things are doctored, things are not added. And how could you comb through thousands of documents in just a couple of hours and then give Justin Baldoni overnight to respond by a certain time, but then you still publish what you have without his response at all, no response, 2 hours before the deadline that you gave him? All of that is egregious, but it's just ridiculous. And they're trying to get out of it and say, claiming that as journalists, they had the right to do it. And they're trying to do that. They're not going to get out of it. But let's continue. The complaint's 30 provisions are far beyond the 17 Baldoni signed. Sorry, guys, I'm going to move the way this is. Okay. The complaint's 30 provisions, far beyond the 17 Baldoni signed, introduced exaggerated allegations, such as Baldoni entering her trailer nude or discussing orgasms, not present in the original document from November of 2023. The New York Times article, relying on stolen, that is important, stolen PR text messages, falsely claimed a subpoena, accused Baldoni of orchestrating a smear campaign against Lively, allegedly with involvement from Stephanie Jones, a former PR associate, who Justin Baldoni is suing. She actually sued him, I believe, on Christmas Eve. So after the complaint, New York Times article on the 20th, then the 21st, New York Times article, and then the 24th, Christmas Eve, she filed a lawsuit against him. Now, he's just recently filed a lawsuit against her, but she is the person that started everything. She is certified nuts, okay? And there's a lot to go into why she did all this, but for the sake of time, we're not going to go into it. I will in subsequent videos. Okay, so evidence points to a pre-filing coordination. Text messages from August of 2024 show Lively threatening to go to the Times if Baldoni refused to take responsibility for her promotional fallout, suggesting the article was a premeditated strike. The rapid publication, impossible with the claimed review of thousands of documents in a day, indicates a rehearsed effort to rehabilitate Lively's image after her August 2024 PR missteps, not a pursuit of factual justice. This orchestrated escalation prompts a closer look at her specific allegations and Baldoni's rebuttals. Okay, so we kind of went over that, but there's a lot more to it. Like the text messages were stolen from Jennifer Abel's phone, and then they claimed that they had a subpoena for it, lying in legal documents that they had. And the New York Times, they had subpoena, and they did not have a subpoena. This is and now Jennifer Abel is suing Stephanie Jones as well as Justin Baldoni is suing her. Like I said, there's a lot to go into it, but there was a lot of illegal activity, lying, duplicity, collusion, coercion, just everything you can think of happening to Justin Baldoni in order to destroy this man and take over this film. And she was getting, like I said, that bad press during the press tour, a movie about domestic violence. She's promoting it like it's Barbie, which I think she was trying to have the Barbie Oppenheimer summer like of the previous year, where they, it was like Barbieheimer is what people were calling it. She was treating Deadpool as Oppenheimer, and her movie It Ends With Us as, Barbie. But it's about domestic violence. She's always talking about florals and wear your florals, grab your friends, and It Ends With Us. She's promoting her liquor company, which is often liquor is tied to domestic violence. So she's promoting this liquor company that is named after her 5-year-old child. During that time, we know how they are with their children. I've gone over what happened with their 7-year-old in Deadpool, and it is absolutely atrocious. If you haven't seen my update to it, it is on my channel, and it's egregious. But so, and then she's over talking everybody. People are wondering, where is Justin Baldoni? None of the cast are talking about him. He seems to be missing in action. And he is a key part of this film. He had a fan base within this book community. And because he had been part of this film development since 2019, far before Blake Lively came in. But then she came in and wanted to make this her Barbie moment, her introduction onto this back onto the scene, because so far her career had been, nothing, honestly. And she had been most of her films have been flops. And then when she comes back on the scene after having all these children, she's trying to, you know, reintroduce herself as this, A-lister, and she's really not. She's just tied to an A-lister, her husband. So just the way she's promoting it, and then things started coming out with past interviews, things that she had said, and she was a complete mean girl and appeared to most to be a narcissist. So the bad plus publicity she was getting was organic because people could see for themselves the type of person that Blake Lively is. And I believe because she's a narcissist, she can't see herself in that way. She thinks everyone thinks she's fabulous and great. What do you mean that happened? There has to be someone that's planting these stories and doing this to me. But there wasn't. This was all her own doing. Okay. So this is why she's alleging that he orchestrated all of these different things against her. And then she was making these demands for him to take her, and Ryan Reynolds sent him this letter that he was supposed to sign and publicly announce that all of the bad PR she was getting was because of him and something that he orchestrated. And he was supposed to take accountability for everything that went wrong on set. All right. She demanded that, or she was going to go to the New York Times. So they made this demand. He refused because none of it was true. Her bad press was because of her. And now she's like, well, I'm going to go to the New York Times and I'm going to allege everything that was in that 17-point thing, that it happened, that you did all this. We're going to go public with it. And this was back in August. Her CRD complaint wasn't until December 20th. And then December 21st, New York Times published her thing after they've combed through thousands of documents and text messages. Okay. Debunking specific allegations. So we're going to break down Lively's key allegations and Baldoni's evidence. Lively implied that no intimacy coordinator existed until she demanded one. Yet Lizzie, a veteran from Bridgerton, was employed from pre-production. Cast member Isabella Ferrer praised her in June 2023 interviews, and texts revealed Lively declined pre-production meetings, insisting Baldoni meet her alone, contradicting her safety concerns. She alleged Baldoni failed to provide a nudity rider, but he did. She refused to sign it over payment disputes, as texts confirm. Her attempt to link it to Ferrer's scenes already filmed under a separate writer was an overreach. So I mean, what my brain is like. There's been so much. My Isabella Ferrer had already filmed her scenes. She had a nudity writer that was signed, and she said that like she, in an interview, she talks about how wonderful it was. She felt so comfortable, so safe. It was such a good experience for her with Justin Baldoni and the intimacy coordinator. She never felt so seen, and just, it was just beautiful. It was magical. It like just nothing but praise. But then she was trying to tie that she didn't have a nudity writer and say that, Isabella didn't have one, but Isabella did, and she already signed it. So it was an overreach. Lively claimed Baldoni forced gratuitous sex scenes, but in May of 2023, emails to Heath, an intimacy coordinator, showed changes were contingent on her consent. Her refusal to meet the coordinator caused miscommunication, not his imposition. And, he wanted her to meet with this coordinator so that they could develop the scenes together. She refused to meet with her. So he was left to rely on himself and the intimacy coordinator to create these scenes. But then later on, she tried to say, well, they imposed these scenes on me and I didn't have an intimacy coordinator. She objected to Baldoni's May 26, 2023 sexy remark. about her onesie, where she was trying to wear a coat over it because she was not feeling comfortable about her body. Because again, she didn't even want to film intimacy scenes until phase 2 because she felt like her body wasn't ready because she was very much postpartum. So she talks about the intimacy scene with her onesie. He was trying to get her to take her coat off. All right. Yet texts and interviews show her using the term freely for her wardrobe, aiming for sexier looks. She uses the word sexy and sexier a lot. Baldoni apologized multiple times, exposing her hypocrisy. So then she tried to say, "You used the word sexy one time. That made me uncomfortable." And just to be nice, he didn't know if that did. He was just using the same language that she had used to try to make her, "No, you look sexy. You know, the onesie is sexy." It's not. In no way in this movie is she ever sexy, ever. But I think he was just he was trying to be nice. He was trying to, no, it looks sexy. Using the same language. She's saying, "I want to look sexier. I want to look sexier." Is that sexy? This wardrobe has to be sexy. And so to make using her saying, adopting the same language, because that's kind of how he is, and that's what directors will do to try to connect and try to make their cast feel more comfortable. He uses that term one time, and she's saying that was sexual harassment. That's what made her uncomfortable. But we have it on film, it's documented everywhere, where she uses this term over and over to describe her wardrobe herself. Okay. Video evidence shows Lively directing Baldoni in the dance scene, demanding he speak, then misquoting then misquoting "it smells good" about her spray tan as "so good" in her lawsuit. Exposure forced her to amend the claim, proving dishonesty. So remember, I described that scene before about the spray tan and all of that. And she was talking about how, "Oh, the spray tan is gonna smell, and then I'm gonna get it all over you." He's like, "No, it smells good." And then she later claimed that he sniffed her and said, "So good." And then she had to amend it because once the video footage came out and everyone saw that she was lying, let me change it up. Okay. And she's trying to, and then she keeps demanding that he talk to her in the scene. But as the director, he wanted silence, quiet intimacy. But I described that as earlier. She was directing him. Lively twisted Baldoni's lift scene weight inquiries due to his back injury into fat shaming, but he connected her to a health coach for probiotics and praised by her in text while she self-criticized her postpartum body. So this sounds a little disjointed. I was trying to get this thing to be summarized, but so one of the things she said is that he fat shamed her because he inquired by the personal trainer, how much does she weigh, because he has debilitating back injury and he can't lift a certain amount, especially a person in a certain way. So he was inquiring about that so that they can adapt the scene in a way so that it would not injure his back. She then had, when he was later invited to her and Ryan Reynolds' home, Ryan Reynolds started berating him and about, "You fat shame my wife," and just went nuclear on Justin Baldoni. I believe to the point where I believe it was in their home or either on set, but I believe it was in their home. I'm sorry, guys, I can't remember right now. But either way, even Sony, a representative from Sony said they had never heard anyone talk to someone like that. And it was jarring for everyone involved. But he berated him and tried to destroy him for fat shaming my wife. And he had recommended the health coach for her for probiotics, but she was saying he fat shamed her and wanted her to have a trainer because she was fat. But it was about probiotics because she was constantly getting sick and all these other things. And then you can see in text messages, she goes on and on and on. This is a woman who's not comfortable. This woman who fat shamed herself, talking about how fat she was, her body looked a mess, everything going on and on and on in text messages about how terrible she looked. Again, it's not wanting to do intimacy scenes until much later, and they accommodated her so that she wanted to get in shape herself. These are the things that she was saying, fat shaming her postpartum body constantly, very insecure about what she looks like, constantly needing to be sexier, constantly needing to be slimmer. She is the one that fat shamed her own body. And they tried to put it on Justin Baldoni. She alleges that uninvited nude entries, but post May 16th texts show her inviting Baldoni while pumping breast milk, conducting meetings comfortably. Her later monitor demand was a fabrication. These distortions fueled her narrative of a retaliatory smear campaign, which we'll address next. So, this is the whole thing where she says that he came into her trailer while she was nude, right? And she was breastfeed, but she was breast pumping. She was pumping her breast, breast milk. And he just came in there uninvited while she was nude. But that wasn't true because messages later show she invited him into her trailer while she was breast pumping. What? So these are all her allegations, guys. Ridiculous. This is severe, uncomfortable sexual harassment that she experienced. All right, let's see how much more we can get to with this. Let me see. Okay, we got only a little bit more, guys. All right. The smear campaign claim. Lively's August 2024 promotional fallout blamed on Baldoni's alleged smear arose from her tone-deaf promotion, ignoring the film's domestic violence theme while pushing personal brands like hair products and gin. Yeah, I forgot that. Her Betty Boost, and then also her, her Blake Brown hair care line, where she said she doesn't use conditioner and no one in Hollywood does, so you don't need conditioner. Colleen Hoover fans were upset since the 2023 casting for aging up Lily Bloom and intensified criticism predating any PR moves by Baldoni. Text showed Lively blaming him in August 2024, blaming him in August of 2024 before his crisis PR hire, later using stolen text to frame a retaliatory smear. Her actions, cutting Baldoni's poster credit and isolating him at the premiere, sparked feud rumors, a self-inflicted wound she pinned on him. And just understand, Justin, he hired the crisis PR person because he saw the false allegations, the things that Blake Lively, what she was doing and all of that. But in those text messages, they never did anything. They never tried to smear her. They never did none of it. Anything that was happening to her was organic online. So they were saying there's nothing we need to do to help build Justin's image, not to go against, to smear Blake, but do we need to rehab Justin's image? Do we need to do, to fight this crisis that is clearly looming? But when you go through text messages, nothing happened. They did not do anything to her. And that even is they allege that Jed Wallace is the person who they used in order to create the smear campaign and use bots and accounts and all of that. And Jed Wallace has sued her for $7 million. And he affirms unequivocally he did absolutely nothing. He affirms this under oath, which could get him, criminal charges if he's lying. Because there is no evidence of this. And is most likely she is going to have to settle with him because she says no claims. This is just their paranoia saying that this happened, and they were alleging it as fact, not only in their complaints without evidence, but in the New York Times article. Okay. And fans already didn't like her because of her aging up, because of her outfits. And then you see in the promotions how horrible she is in past interviews, and people are digging up receipts about how horrible she is. And then you don't see Justin Baldoni, and this is when a feud rumors start to swirl. Fan analysis, such as those without a crystal ball, which I've talked about before, trace this backlash to 2023, disproving a coordinated effort by Baldoni. She actually breaks it down in great detail about what happened with this, by why the fans did not like Blake going all the way, back years. This false attribution reveals a broader malicious strategy she employed. Collusion and malice. Lively allegedly coordinated a defamation campaign with the New York Times, Stephanie Jones from JonesWorks PR, Ryan Reynolds, and allegedly Taylor Swift and WME's Ari Emanuel. Okay. In 2024, she threatened to go to the Times if Baldoni didn't accept blame for her PR woes. a refusal that preceded the December 20th, 2024 CRD filing and the New York Times article, reliant on stolen texts not subpoenaed as claimed. All right. And so then Reynolds' influence led to Baldoni's firing from WME, amplifying reputational damage. Jones, after losing Wayfair's business, muddied PR truces, while Lively leaked her complaint to maximize impact. This premeditated effort, evidenced by threats and swift execution, aimed to ruin Baldoni's career, to salvage hers, and not seek justice, a tactic that extended to her influence over the cast. And there's a lot in there. Like I said, I can go over what Stephanie Jones did, which she really started this. There was supposed to be a PR truce because Blake was claiming that he was trying to smear her, and it was coming, all of her negative press was coming from him. And he said, it's not me. But both of their representatives said, listen, okay, listen, we're just going to have a truce. We're going to agree that there's a truce because Blake is she's very paranoid that it has to come from somewhere. It couldn't be me. There's nothing wrong with me. Somebody's just doing this to me. I haven't done anything for people not to like me. So in order to calm things and to just ease her fears, both of their PR representatives said, okay, we're going to have a truce. But then that truce was actually broken by Stephanie Jones. Okay. And again, I have to go through that in a later thing, but it's all collusion if you look at the evidence that Justin Baldoni has. Cast testimony. Before Lively's influence, cast members praised Baldoni's professionalism. Isabella Farah texted him in July of 2023, lauding his safe, life-changing set, and echoed this in June 2023 interviews. Brandon Sklenar, in a 2023 set interviews, commended his leadership. And Hassan Minhaj called everyone lovely. There was a lot more to these interviews, which we're going to dissect later, but everyone was talking about how wonderful Justin Baldoni was during filming. Just an absolute dream to work with, the best they've ever had. He's so professional. He's so calm. He's just amazing. And that they had never experienced such a great working environment. Post-promo, Lively reshaped their stance, dressing fairer and dominating interviews, staging pap walks to align them against Baldoni. This shift contradicts her toxic set claims, as their earlier endorsements, like Farah's intimacy coordinator praise, reflect a positive environment. Her control over their narrative ties to the legal arguments she now faces. So she went back and retroactively took control of things, and then during the promotion, and she's over talking anybody, she would not let them get things out. She would just dominate the conversation because she didn't want anyone to say anything positive about Justin. She didn't even want any questions about Justin. She wanted to just make it about her, and nothing and nobody else other than her liquor company and her hair care line. And so also she alleges this sexual harassment, or, all the ridiculous things we said. But during promotion, she literally sexually harasses Brandon Sklenar, talking about his butt, sexualizing him in that way. She rubs the inner thighs of Isabella Farah and Colleen Hoover during interviews, touching people, being very inappropriate, even saying things that are inappropriate, but yet she's alleging that Justin Baldoni did all this stuff to her. And then I want to say, she actually retroactively, she goes and she says that in May, somebody complained, another cast member, another actress complained about being uncomfortable on set, and that it was reported, and she uses specific language. Come to find out, when Justin Baldoni provided receipts, it was actually her texting him. And the thing she's saying the other actress said, it is actually in her text message she sent to him. So she lies flat out and says it's somebody else in her complaint. Knowing Justin Baldoni has these text messages, this is how arrogant she is, and dumb, I would say. She's saying it's somebody else sent this, but word for word, it's a text message. She is talking about herself to Justin Baldoni. But even that text message was set up so that she could try to frame him later and again assert control over this movie. Like, that's how bad her evidence is. It is laughable, absolutely ridiculous. That's why any of these mainstream publications holding water for her and say both sides, and it's just a PR war, and it's you know, both of them look bad. No, they don't. And this is how you know none of them have gone over the evidence. None of them have looked at the case. To me, they just seem like a bunch of paid PR shills who are just not even trying to be objective. They all are holding water for her. Because you cannot look at the evidence and in any way conclude that she has a case. You just cannot. Like, you have to be, just insane. There are outright lies throughout her thing. And even in her amended thing, she has to go back and retroactively correct lies in her initial complaint in the amended one after Justin Baldoni provided so many receipts. That's how insane this is. And anyone holding water and saying no, and about this is how you know they have an agenda and they are lying their behinds off that they've looked into anything. They absolutely have not. Legal arguments. Lively's motion to dismiss under California's Me Too law protecting publicized allegations fails, as Baldoni's defamation suit targets the New York Times article, not her CRD complaint, which I'm going to do a big breakdown of that. We already talked about it before, why the CRD doesn't count with her and she can't claim things are being retaliatory. And I had it a little bit wrong in there because I was thinking it was about her being an employee versus a contractor. I'm not going to break that down now, but it's not because of that. It's because he is not counteracting against her CRD, but the New York Times article. Okay. That's where she really, she messed herself up. So in August 2024, threats and complaint leaks show, in August of 2024, threats and a complaint, like, I don't know why the way this is, I phrased it like this. August 2024, threats and the complaint leaks show malice, voiding privilege. The 17 provisions in April 2023 Dragon's threat and the WME firing prove premeditated coercion, not safety measures. Her avoidance of HR channels demands a trial discovery, such as WME emails, to expose this pattern influencing how the public now views her claims. So when you look at this, and I'm sorry, the way I broke it down, maybe I have to redo this video so it's a little bit better. But he is suing for the New York Times article. He is suing for malice. He is suing because he was fired from WME. He's suing for things that are not actually the allegations, right? He's saying that they are false and proving that. And that's part of what he's doing with because of the article and the malice and all of that. But she has no standing with the CRD or saying it's retaliatory because it is not directly tied to the CRD itself. Okay. So this was a very smart thing that Brian Friedman, our lawyer, yes, he's ours. We can't afford him, but he's our lawyer, has done. Okay. Whew. Public perception. By March of 2025, Lively's support wanes due to timeline gaps like no phase 2 issues, Baldoni's evidence and by texts and videos, and her contradictions, such as kissing him post claims. Fan backlash rooted in 2023 casting discontent aligns with his proof, not misogyny, shifting sentiment based on facts. This public shift underscores the broader stakes of the dispute. And now just kind of a wrap up of broader implications. Unpunished, Lively's alleged extortion, refined here and hinted at previously, like firing a makeup artist via harassment, could persist, enabling her dragons. Investigating past sets and deposing key figures such as WME and cast members could establish a pattern, impacting Hollywood accountability and protecting future targets. And just so you know, she's claiming massaging and all of that. She had two women fired. She had two women fired from the set. So that again, understand, I believe she was functioning as an employer. She had people fired, two women fired. She also had an editor fired. She had the composer fired. And anyone claiming you don't believe all women and women are not powered, well, why aren't you interviewing the two women she had fired from the set? For nothing. But you know why? Because none of these publications, none of these journalists have actually read through the evidence. They haven't bothered to look at anything. They just think this is the second coming of Me Too, like Megan Twohey from the New York Times trying to revive her dead career and have this second coming. And so I believe that they just fabricated and colluded to destroy Justin Baldoni and hang all of this on him. But they had no idea that he was keeping receipts, because again, they did not think he would fight back so hard. And they actually they did this to the wrong man. This is a man who was a male feminist. This is a man who believed in this movie. It actually, he, before the book became famous, it became famous on Book Talk, on TikTok and Book Talk in 2021. He acquired the rights in 2019. And Colleen Hoover loved him so much, she wanted him to play Ralph, even though he wasn't originally planning to, because he was older. He was older than the character. But he liked the idea of aging it up so it wasn't such a vulnerable young story. And he believed in this before the book became famous. And after he read it, it was something that he cried reading this book because it moved him so much. So he was invested in this for years before it even became famous. So he didn't even want to do this movie because he was looking at it in order to enrich himself. Oh, it's famous on Book Talk. Let me hop on there and try to get the rights so I can make a lot of money. He believed in the cause. Hence, donating money to, domestic violence victims. Part of his PR campaign was to talk about domestic violence, bring on people who had survived and tell their stories. While Blake is out here tone deaf and promoting herself and wearing florals and talking about her liquor company and her hair care company and how it's a big, beautiful movie and it's not about domestic violence. She actually says this. She's framing it as something else, removing him from the poster, removing his name and removing him from the poster. She just has her face there with these flowers around. A lot of people who didn't even know about this movie thought it was a romance movie or romantic comedy. And so when you look at how authentic he is, and these fans who had developed this relationship for years with him and saw how authentic he was in his work and the things he was doing, his books, his podcasts, and then to later say that he sexually harassed Blake Lively, huh? It's like they didn't know who they were dealing with. They thought that we were stupid, and people were stupid. And I had no idea about any of this. I am retroactively looking at everything. I didn't know about this book, the movie, nothing. And so all of these things happened. And so they just, because these people are insincere, they're narcissists, they're greedy, they're malicious, they'll go to anything, any lengths to protect themselves, protect their livelihoods, and to make a dollar. They don't understand compassion. They don't understand empathy. They don't understand a person who's authentic, who's real, who's gone on a growth journey, which she even tries to use his growth journey against him and say that he's addicted to porn and all of that. And that's not true. He viewed porn when he was younger and he felt like it was, not good for him and it was sexualizing women. Like, yes, there are people who could be duplicitous and present themselves as one way publicly, which I would say Ryan Reynolds has. But actually, if you peel back the layers, they weren't duplicitous. If you look at Ryan, go back to his interviews, the things he said, the movies, all of his behavior in the past with women, the cheating and everything else, he's always shown people who he is. They just use PR to spin a narrative that he was a nice guy and to frame all of his jokes and bad behavior as mishaps, or the nasty things he would say as just jokes, just kidding. You're just being sensitive. And then he spins himself into Deadpool, which gives him permission to be this nasty, gratuitous character over and over. And then he uses PR to hide any bad things that he's done. See, this is a person who's always been saying who he is. It's just been framed in a narrative that to normalize how he is, versus Justin Baldoni, who's authentic, who is really embodying these things, which is what I think enraged Ryan Reynolds, because he says that Justin Baldoni pretends to be the man he is, but no, Ryan Reynolds tries to pretend to be the man that Justin Baldoni is, and it enrages him that somebody is so pure and authentic. And I'm not saying he's an angel and Justin Baldoni's never done wrong. What I'm saying is a person who's on a self-growth journey like him and is exposed to wrongdoings and really embodies and believes the things and tries to every day discipline himself with the things that he believes and live an authentic lifestyle. When you somebody who is not authentic, who has to hide and wear a disguise, wear a mask as a narcissist, as a sociopath, they cannot take that. They want to destroy something like that because it causes them to look in the mirror. What does that say about me to have to see this, to have to be around this, for my wife to interact with this? This is why I think he swung so hard to make fun of Justin Baldoni when there was no harassment and he did nothing wrong. For him to create this nice pool character, that is somebody who's psychotic. That is somebody obsessed with Justin Baldoni. They are obsessed with Justin. Why are they so obsessed with him? To put in Deadpool, nice pool, and to study all these things about him, to add it to this character, and to go so far as to kill him when he did nothing wrong. You lying pieces of shite. I wanted to say it, but I'm going to be a good girl. They're obsessed with Justin. Ryan wants to be him, and he reveals this in his trying to be dismissed from this lawsuit, saying that he's authentic and he's this and that. I mean, they have studied this man. And by, you have to think about it, it's all projection. Everything they're saying that he did, they did, and far worse. And so when you look at it in that lens, you start to understand just how diabolical and gross and disgusting this is. And I think this is why so many of us have just come to support him, to be his dragons, because like we can see what is really going on, and they think we're stupid. They think they can control the narrative because that's what Hollywood stars are used to. That's what the privileged and elite are used to, being able to use PR and pay people off and use their powerful connections to hide their dirt, to hide who they are. They're used to wearing masks in public, and being who they truly are behind the scenes. But the mask keeps slipping. But then when you're faced with somebody like him, it just infuriates. How come I can't get to him? How come I can't? Something has to be wrong with him. What would lead them to be this angry and to lie and try to destroy him? So guys, that's it. How long is this video, guys? Oh my gosh, an hour and a half. So I'm going to upload this. I got a couple mistakes in there, a couple misspeaks, all that. Hopefully you can understand it. Again, I'm working on a better timeline to try to put this all together visually so you guys can see it. I think that's going to help a lot of people, and then you guys can spread it and share it with people. So because people are not invested in this, they need to understand what are the facts of this case so they're not misled by, the media. They're not misled by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds in their side of things, because they're just spinning a bunch of lies and nonsense. And so we have got to get the truth out there. But with that, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, because you're not going to miss my updates. And I will see you guys in the next one.